Okay, here we are. Alt.nerd.obsessive. Worst episode ever.
Hey everybody, welcome to Worst Episode Ever, a podcast for Americans who love The Simpsons by Americans who love The Simpsons, about how much we hate everyone else and also The Simpsons. I'm obviously kidding. We love everybody equally, but it is Independence Day almost here in the States, and we're also on a mission to find which is the worst episode ever. But my name is Dan.
My name is Jack.
And I'm throwing us all out of whack with my jingoism in the intro here.
I'm pretty sure. I know
we just lost all of our European listeners.
You're our demographics guy, but is it like more than half of our listeners from outside?
We have a lot of UK listeners, so this is a time in America where we remember where we kicked your butt.
Well, they saved our ass in World War III.
That's true, and we'll never forget it. Hey, everybody, so we're back again with another episode. Like we said, this is coming to you on July 2nd.
2nd, 3rd.
Whatever day that is. We're recording it far in the future. Many podcasts don't do an episode this for 4th of July, because they're like, oh, we gotta go like barbecue and...
Yeah, where's my 4th of July episode, Serial?
Yeah, really?
Like, they can't...
Did he do it or not? God! Can't take this. I need to know more about male crimp.
Nobody's gonna know what we're talking about.
Cereal's extremely popular.
Male crimp.
Male crimp? Everybody knows that. That's a thing. You guys know. Unless you're one of those dirty foreigners. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Worst Episode Ever. Real take. No, it's too late. Okay. So today we're going to be watching an episode from Season 15 that originally aired in March 2004.
Jesus Christ. Should we start over? What's going on here?
No, let's just power through. We're going to get it. Season 15 originally aired...
Somebody's been having a little too many America balls, whatever that means.
My theory is Skinner likes dog food. Okay, let's try this again. Today's episode from Season 15 originally aired March 2004. It is called Codependence Day. Jack, have you seen this one?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, that would be right and smack in the middle of college. I definitely wasn't watching a lot of TV.
Yeah, me neither.
Then. Yeah.
Me neither. As far as we know, this episode has nothing to do with America or Independence Day. It probably takes place in America, but we just picked it because it sounds like Independence Day. So that's why we're doing it, and we know nothing about it. So yeah, we're going to be watching Codependence Day, suggested by a number of listeners. We have...
probably several from not America.
Friend of the show, Dave, actually suggested this episode.
Oh, okay, former guest.
Dave Dorman. We also had Brendan McGurr.
Ooh, that could be Irish. That could be from Ireland.
Uh-oh. Someone named, this is how they put their name on the form on the website. Troy McClure's Ghost suggested this episode.
God, jeez.
A little dark.
Is Troy McClure dead? I know Phil Hartman is, but I'd like to think that Troy McClure's still kicking.
Well, we'd like to think that he's at the aquarium in the sky now. And that's actually it for the people who've suggested this episode, so thanks to everyone who did. We're going to take a break in a moment and watch the episode. If you have not yet watched it, you can do so on simpsonsworld.com, unless you are one of those non-American listeners, in which case I think you have to buy it. Maybe there's a legal way to stream it.
That's what you get for losing the war.
That's right. And, so Codependence Day, Season 15, we're going to take a break and watch it. We'll be back.
Lisa, get in here. You're a grand old fuck. You're a high-fi and fuck.
Listen, Mo, I did something really terrible to someone I love.
Hey, look, I've been in the bartender business for a long time, all right? I've heard it all.
Well, what I did was, I did a witch cut.
Ugh! What are you? You're like a monster. That's like the worst thing I've ever heard anybody do to anybody.
So, that was Codependence Day.
It sure was, Jack. It sure was.
And again, happy Independence Day. That's the thing we're doing.
I get it.
Yeah. Okay.
That's probably why I said all that stuff about foreigners in the opening.
As opposed to the stuff you said about the foreigners all the other times.
Well...
All right, why is it called Codependence Day? That comes down to the story, so let's go over that. But before we get to that story, it actually opens up with The Simpsons, where Homer and the kids are online for the new post-classic version of Star Wars, Cosmic Wars. It's Episode 1, it's Phantom Menace, called The Gathering Shadow. Of course, they hate the movie. It was terrible. It was a huge letdown. So Bart and Lisa decide they want to go to Skywalker Ranch, or in this case, whatever the
I think it was just Cosmic Wars Ranch.
Yeah, so,
very clever.
Very clever guys. And girls probably, maybe, I don't know. But so they go to North California where the ranch is, and that's also wine country. So while the kids are complaining to the fake George Lucas, Marge and Homer bond over drinking wine at a Napa Valley kind of place. And they realize that when they're drinking, they actually get along really well, and their love for each other is reignited. So now they just go on like a drinking spree, and they just go out and get drunk and have a good time together. But they eventually Homer crashes the car while drunk driving and switches places with Marge because he doesn't want to lose his license. So now everybody knows that everybody thinks that Marge is a drunk driver. She's very embarrassed. She goes to rehab. And Homer goes and sort of apologizes, and then the episode
we'll certainly
ends.
get into that later.
And that's pretty much it. If it's, I know that
Yeah.
didn't really sound like a plot recap because there wasn't really a plot, but I did my best.
There was a plot. We'll get into it. We'll get into it. I got a lot to say about this episode. I think the best thing to do right now is let's just talk about Star Wars.
Of course.
So let's just get all of our cosmic wars, I should say, talk out of the way.
I thought you actually just wanted to talk about.
All right, let's do it. Are you excited for The Force Awakens? I think it's safe to say we all are cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, I'm a little less excited than I thought.
Really?
I was gonna be. Yeah, the trailers.
You don't like the trailer?
It's okay.
Jack, did you see he has a lightsaber with little lightsabers on the side?
I like that. I like
it too. It's like a broadsword.
And I like
kind of
BB-8, but that's. I don't know. J.J. Abrams doesn't really do it for me. So, and I think the title is terrible. So
I just hope they hired him not based on Star Trek or his work on like Alias or Lost. Felicity. I want him to bring more felicity to the Star Wars universe.
I want Luke to cut his hair short.
That might ruin the trilogy. The show never recovered when she cut her luscious locks.
Actually, I talked about Cosmic Wars. This very scene that opens the show up on a previous episode where so Cosmic Wars is in post-classic canon where it's the Star Wars, and anytime they pretty much bring up Star Wars at this point, instead they bring up Cosmic Wars. Just like they have Angelica Button instead of Harry Potter, and they have Maple instead of Apple. It's just a thing they seem to have started doing after the 90s. In the 90s, in the classic episodes, usually they would just say Star Wars or say
Star Trek 12, so very tired.
Rocky 7, Adrian's Revenge. By the way, Rocky 7 is being filmed right now in Philadelphia. It is not called Adrian's Revenge.
What's it called? Creed, right?
Creed. So, yeah, why don't we? What do you think about this? I actually love the Phantom Menace parody, and this is why I didn't want to say this because we've had this conversation already. But I love when the dog walker crashes in.
Yeah,
and
the dog walker. Isn't it an AT-AT walker?
Yeah, and the ATST is the chicken walker.
That.
Yeah, the skinny ones are the chicken walkers.
I mean, it makes sense. Like it walks like a dog, it walks like a chicken.
Yeah, it's a big
I get
dog,
it.
yeah.
I never heard it that. I've never heard it called that.
I don't know where I learned that from. Maybe,
and I'm a huge nerd.
I might have learned it from my Micro Machines Star Wars set. I don't know.
Micro Machines Star Wars set company
Where that guy? We need that guy on this show because obviously our episodes are just getting longer and longer. We need him to just replace.
And then Grover comes in, and then Joshua Folds outside, and we're in the bus stop, and then the dog comes in, and it's just like,
cut all this.
Should we cut this?
He was also Mr. Testaverde on Saved by the Bell.
Yes, he was. John Machida, I believe is his name. I don't think he's with us anymore.
Oh, he's dead?
He may have passed on.
No, now I'm going to heaven. Now I'm going to... cut all this.
Yeah, so let's talk about Cosmic Wars. It actually made a little bit of sense in this episode to not call it Star Wars because they got pretty personal with the George Lucas insults.
Right, but they didn't have to get personal.
They didn't have to get insults. They didn't have to get insults. They didn't have to get insults at all. They didn't have to get personal at all.
I mean, I could see maybe they want because the George Lucas analog in this canon is Randall Curtis, and eventually the kids do go and meet him at the Lucas Ranch. And he talks and he defends his movie. So obviously you can't get George Lucas to do this because I don't think he's secure with himself.
No, definitely not.
To play
especially
along
not at this time. Yeah. This was even before Revenge of the Sith came out.
And who can blame him? The movies are arguably very terrible, but I don't know if you can convince a guy to go on national TV and say, yeah, they sucked. Yeah.
Look, he is an excessively rich man, and he's actually done a lot of like great work now with like charities and things. So God bless George Lucas.
Yeah.
What I was confused about was, why is he a little person in this episode?
That's what I was gonna say.
He's not short.
Is
he? I think he's like 6 foot or something.
Oh, I got the impression that he's kind of short, but only like average short, like 5'7", 5'8".
George Lucas is. Why did I think that his height would be like right here on his Wikipedia page?
Google didn't tell you right away. Google didn't read your mind.
No, not today.
Siri,
So cut
what
this
is
out.
George Lucas's height?
Okay, so George Lucas is 5'7", actually.
All right, yeah, that's what I just said.
That's not very short.
That's short.
Well, that's short for a man,
yeah,
but like
it's
he's not
below
Peter
average.
Dinklage.
No, and that's the case. They made him about Lisa's height, maybe shorter.
Yeah.
It was, it's more to me.
That just seemed like a jab that didn't need to be taken.
Exactly. Like, look, you've got enough ammunition to make fun of this guy.
Yeah.
Just based on.
You can stick to the work. You don't need
Yeah.
to make it personal.
It just-
Phantom Menace was a terrible movie.
I would say mean spirited, but it's not because he's not that short. It's just kind of lame. I don't know. It's
Lame is the
yeah,
right
it's
word,
just-
I think.
Really, that's what you got.
Yeah.
So, man, we're all over the place in just
Yeah.
this one tiny spot.
I just want to roll back
Yeah.
real quick to the very beginning. When it starts with Kent Brockman at the movie theater, and there's a line.
It opens up with a hilarious line. The entire episode opens up with just Kent Brockman on camera getting ready to film, or actually filming, I guess, and he just goes, "God, I love to smoke," and it's just a great
It was
Harry
great.
Shearer delivery, and
I also
great
liked
Kent Brockman.
in the background behind him. He's at the movie theater, and the background was a poster advertising Teen Sex Wager versus
I saw
Boner
that, yeah,
Academy.
yeah.
I just thought that was
Yeah.
funny. But no, it pans over, and it is the opening day of the new Star Wars movie, which in this is what was in this? The Gathering Shadow.
The Gathering
is
Shadow.
what
It
was,
turns
right? So
out
the Phantom
that
Menace.
the Gathering Shadow is actually redistricting.
Trade, yeah, whatever. But it shows a lot of Springfielders in Star Wars attire, and some of it was pretty funny. There
Yeah.
was like someone was dressed up as the Death Star, and
That
their
was very
dog was
comical, yeah.
Darth Vader. That was
Yeah.
cute. And I actually really liked Comic Book Guy, obviously the first person online, and I saw him and he was wearing a flannel shirt and jeans, and I was like, that's really funny, he's dressed as George Lucas. They didn't need to say it, and then he's like, I'm dressed as Randall Curtis, the creator of whatever it was, Cosmic Wars, I guess.
Yeah, there's two things wrong with that. First of all, like you said, it would have been funnier, and I feel like the old show would have done it where you just have to kind
don't
of get,
spell out the reference.
Yeah, you have to get the reference. If you don't get it, you don't lose anything for it. So that's one thing.
Yeah.
Actually, and I've noticed that I noticed not necessarily over explaining the joke, but there were a lot of jokes or so-called jokes in this episode where they. I liked the joke, and then they killed it with this extra beat.
Yeah.
Something we've actually talked about on the show a lot. So
yeah.
I'm gonna try to, if we, we'll go in order of the episode. If I catch it, I'll try to come up with some kind of like extra beat alarm or something. I don't know, just like
Where are all these beats?
too long. I don't know, something ridiculous.
the beat too long.
It won't be that, but
It might be. I might just do it. There was actually one that I thought fit that example right in this scene, which is when Otto comes up to the ticket window and tries to buy a ticket to Cosmic Wars.
Right.
And they say, oh, you were on
He was
the
waiting
wrong
in the wrong
line.
line
This
for
is
3
the line
days."
for whatever the
Some
Jim Broadbent,
British,
Ellen
yeah.
Burstyn movie was. And then it just like cuts back to Otto, and he goes, "You mean I waited on the wrong line?" Even though they just said that, you didn't need a shot of Otto saying.
This episode had a lot of that.
There was a lot of that.
It was the beat, the beat, the beat. What was it? Go to the beat, to
Hit the
beat, go
beat, the
bass.
beat too much.
Beat of the beat of the beat, go bass side. Was that it?
Yep, that was it. Friends forever. Wake up. That's not even Saved by the Bell. That was Full House.
All right, so a couple other things I want to bring up before we move on. So this episode.
I have a
aired-
lot of things
Yeah,
to bring up.
yeah,
So
this
sorry, I keep distracting us.
This episode aired in 2004, 5 years after The Phantom Menace comes out. I understand that animated shows have a long turnaround time,
Yeah.
but it just seems. I guess this was right. No, it wasn't even right after Attack of the Clones. It was
this
a year
was
before Revenge of the
A year
Sith.
before Revenge of the Sith, yeah.
It just seemed like a weird time to really parody, to go all out and parody this movie.
Yeah.
Maybe, like, not only, I mean, yes, it's a really big deal, and that's why a lot of shows and a lot of pop culture things bring up the Phantom Menace, because, there was decades of hype, and then it was just kind of a shit show.
Yep.
So I can understand why it would be done a lot, but you think after 3 years or so, they would say, you know what, there's not much new we can add to this conversation.
Well, at least parody the then recent movie. Like, Attack of the Clones
yeah.
parody would have
That's
worked
a
just
good
as
point.
well.
That's a good point, too, because it was a very specific Phantom Menace parody.
I mean, instead of hammering home like the in this, what they did was this Cosmic Wars movie was endless, like Senate floor
Political jargon,
discussing.
yeah.
The AT-AT Walker comes in and it has little glasses that come down, which was very funny.
Yeah, and he sits down. He goes, "You'll wait your turn." And he goes, "Okay." And he sits down and opens up a newspaper, and the camera lingers on him, and you hear like the turnings of the pages.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, just that extra beat of him turning the page, like, sold the joke.
That was funny. No extra beat alarm here.
That was a welcome extra beat.
Welcome beat. But my point is, they didn't have to do that. They could have just as easily done a crappy, thrown-together love story, which was kind of the big problem with one of the big problems with Attack of the Clones.
Or the Attack of the Clones was really where it all started to look like a big cartoon.
Yeah.
Because
that's tough to do since this is a cartoon.
I guess that's a good point. Yeah, no, it seems weird that they would just do this elaborate Phantom Menace parody 5 years after the movie came out.
I did like when the movie starts, the Fox logo comes up because Fox distributed all the Star Wars movies pre-Disney years.
Oh, so does that mean if you watch Star Wars now, like on Blu-ray or whatever the new medium is, you don't get that dun 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 dun? Like
you probably will now.
Okay, because the only way I watched Star Wars was on my VHS tape, so it always opened up with the CBS Fox logo.
Yeah, no, that should still be there because they were part of the creation of the film. They distributed it, but Lucas retained all the rights, which is what he sold to Disney. This is not Business Disney Corner. That's another podcast that we're recording after this.
Business Disney Corner. It's just, I hope it's like the logo is just me and you standing like back to back, like with our arms folded, and like you're all business and I'm all Disney.
That's right. That's how it is.
I don't wear pants like Donald Duck. And
next April, get ready. Disney Business Corner's coming. No, but my point was the Fox logo comes up and it says Fox, a division of Orange Julius, which I always like the Fox references.
Yeah, that's
not a fan.
Not bad.
Okay,
No, it's not bad.
No, you said it all. You didn't like it. I understand.
It just seems like one of those post-classic Simpsons. I don't know. It just seems like one of those jokes where it's just just reference for reference sake. I don't know. Orange Julius.
That's fine. That's fine.
I feel I like the concept of the joke. I don't know.
To each their own, Jack.
I also wanted to. So this is jumping ahead a little bit, but I do want to continue this conversation about Randall Curtis. So besides the fact that they made him very short, it's also so the voice is just Hank Azaria's normal voice.
They didn't even attempt to do a George Lucas impression.
I mean, I'm glad they didn't do some kind of high pitched, lame impersonation of George Lucas to really add insults on top of everything. But it also just took a lot by having it Hank Azaria's normal voice. It just took a lot of characterization out of it just made it that much more bland of a character.
Yeah, it really did. It just was like, hey, you get it? It's supposed to be George Lucas.
I think I would have liked it better if it was Star Wars, and I think I would have liked it better if it was George Lucas. And even if you can't get George Lucas, have somebody not necessarily, like I said, don't do a high pitched whiny voice because or just try to do a George Lucas voice or not just do your normal voice.
Yeah,
I don't know. I maybe the best thing would have not done it at all. I don't know, but it's just weird. Randall Curtis, is the joke that he has two first names like George Lucas is, and I guess they both end in S. I don't know. One other thing I really wanted to bring up about this Cosmic Wars, obviously the entire episode.
I have a few more things.
Wars, is that South Park did it.
That's true.
Just like a few weeks ago, or 3 months ago at this point.
I don't know.
But
we don't know where we are anymore.
So South Park did it, and I'm pretty sure they did it first. They did an amazing episode about Spielberg and Lucas re-editing E.T. and the Star Wars movies.
Yep.
It wasn't necessarily about the prequels, but the kids in South Park go and meet George Lucas and call him out on his bullshit. It was the exact same plot. So South Park did it better. And actually, I do want to bring another point up real quick. Since we're talking about South Park and South Park did it, there was a comment on our website while back, but we're a couple of episodes ahead recording-wise because of the summer. So I do want to talk about this now, even though the comment was probably weeks ago.
Yeah, this episode's being recorded. It's March. It's very cold out. Happy Independence Day.
We actually haven't released any of the episodes yet. We hope you like that Groofa character.
We decided let's just do a full year.
Let's get a full year out of the way.
Get a bunch of Popeye's chicken, lock ourselves away for a month, and record a year's worth of podcasts.
We predicted accurately when Harry Shearer would quit the show.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And timed our extra special episode. Yeah, so some somebody on our website mentioned how it was about our MacGyver, the episode that we did. There's something about marrying, where
Yes.
Patty comes out and Springfield legalizes marriage, and the commenter, and should we look up his name?
Nah, fuck him.
The commenter, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name or your screen name or whatever. He said that what he thought the problem here was, or why South Park did it better, is because the show was trying to be progressive and trying to be preachy.
I saw this too.
Whereas instead of kind of just reflecting the times, which is what it did so well in its earliest seasons,
Right.
And South Park still. So I don't know if I agree with this 100%, but for the most part,
There's something to it, I
South
think.
Park is more reflective and doesn't try to preach. I think they're a little preachier. Even taking South Park out of the equation, he's 100% right in that the older seasons of the show would just kind of put a mirror to society and
It was much more satirical, much more.
Whereas this one now they have more event episodes where they're kind of trying to hammer a point home. So that was a good comment. I thought I'd bring that up.
Good comments.
I liked Ralph. I don't know if you noticed, Ralph was dressed as a Ewok in the movie theater.
did not notice that.
I mean, he's just basically in a teddy bear costume.
All right,
but it was
let's watch it
adorable
again.
because it's Ralph.
Let's watch it again. I gotta see it. All right, we watched it again. It was not as good the second time.
The
really watch it
movie
again.
ends with the theme music, with fake theme music, like close sounding theme music. And again, I guess because it's not really Star Wars, you don't want to use the Star Wars music, but they can. I'm sure they can afford it.
Well, I'm actually wondering. So Fox used to be in cahoots with Lucasfilm. I wonder if this was happening around the time that Disney bought Lucasfilm.
So maybe I think this was before Disney bought Star Wars for sure. That was only a few years ago.
I think it was, but it could have. No, it wasn't a few years ago.
Yeah, it was like
That was-
2013, 2012.
Oh, you're right.
Because they immediately, the day they announced
it was
they bought
2009.
them,
It was
is when
2009.
they announced they were doing the movie.
It was 2009.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, it was after 2004. But
You know
yes.
what? Let's save this for Biz Div Core.
So yeah, maybe they might have had the rights to the music or had easier
Yeah,
access to
that's
them
what I
during
was
the
gonna
classic
say.
years. Because I remember there's a great Burns introduction scene where they play the Empire theme,
Right.
Which we cannot afford, so we will not.
Bomb. That's all we can legally afford. You all know it. Yeah, so that was kind of it for the movie. I liked when they went back and Bart was like, I feel so ripped off, I'm going to smash a hole in the floor. And he just starts destroying the floor.
That's like a great.
That's
Bart.
a classic Bart, just
Yeah.
like violence and destruction for the sake of destruction.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
when he was hitting the mustard packets with a hammer.
Yeah, no, and then
He
just
scratched
and
the
it's
movie.
just, to go out the carpet or the floor, it was exaggerated. And then there was
like that.
there was a really dumb joke where Homer's bored, so he just starts cleaning out his wallet, and he goes, "Ooh, my car insurance is expired."
Right. Well, that was stupid, but I guess it was only there to set up.
But was it? Because his car insurance never really came into play when they have his DUI later. All he says is,
That's
"Oh
true.
no, if I get another DUI, I lose my license," which sounds like he's just gotten DUIs before.
Yeah, that's
his
a good
car
point.
insurance has nothing to do with anything. You would think they would tie it in because it's there.
That's
But
a good point.
It was the joke. I think was he's just nonchalant about his car insurance. I don't think. If there is a tie-in, I think it's a coincidence.
Yeah,
I think
you
it
might
was
be
just
right.
A really bad joke.
Because you're right, it was all about not getting arrested. He just didn't care about the insurance
Right.
at all once the accident
Yeah,
happened.
just a bad joke. And
point.
then also, so they come out of the movie, and Lisa goes, "Man, I can't believe the Gathering Shadow was redistricting."
Yeah.
And it was weird because there's a line waiting for the next showing of the movie, and it really reminded me of the very famous scene from when Homer and Marge are dating,
Right.
in 1980, or I guess married in 1980, and they see The Empire Strikes Back, and Homer comes out, and spoiler alert here.
Spoiler for The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, Homer comes out and says, "Oh man, I can't believe Darth Vader was Luke's father," and then
Right.
everybody in line gets upset with him. So it was weird that they both came out of a Star Wars movie with the words "I can't believe" and then a line being next to
I
them.
think that was intentional, though, no?
I guess, but then they didn't
I mean,
do
it
anything
wasn't-
with it. They
you're
never had
right.
anybody in the line go, "Oh, I thought that would have been funny if everybody's like, oh man, you
Yeah.
spoiled it. Oh, it was redistricting. Oh."
Instead, they just had comic book guy go, "Ooh, I'm gonna go see it 3 more times," even though I hated it.
I like that because I hate the Star Wars movies, and I hate a lot of other big sci-fi movies like the Transformers movies, but
Yeah.
I kind of watch them a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely saw Attack of the Clones twice in theaters.
But
I
that's-
liked Attack of the Clones
I know
more than
that's
you
where
did.
we disagree. I think Phantom Menace is actually the strongest of the three. And
No.
Yes.
Okay, 2 or 3, 2, 1. for me. Best to worst.
And then 1, 3, 2, and 2 is not even on the radar.
All right, so if you think The Phantom Menace is worse, hashtag Team Jack, tweet at us. If you think Attack of the Clones, hashtag Team Dan. I fucked it up. Fuck it, never mind.
I think you've been smoking too much of the
I don't know
hashtag. Like jam bunks.
I haven't. I had Popeye's chicken. It's a Tuesday when we're recording this. I had work today.
So Marge says, why don't you write a letter to George Lucas, to Randall Curtis, instead of chipping the floor away? She goes, I wrote a letter to that's what I did. I wrote a letter to the weather girl to get her to start wearing a bra.
Yeah.
I love that line. That's such a Marge line.
That was good, and I liked that Homer was upset, like, that was you? But then they went back to it later when Homer was like...
extra beat!
Yeah, boom, extra beat!
We'll get there. We'll find something.
Did someone just open the door?
We'll find a good beat thing. We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Yeah, no, that was terrible, and it's also just jerk ass Homer. Like,
It's jerk-ass Homer,
Hey,
yeah.
Marge, I'm going out of my way to tell you that I found this hot girl hotter than you.
Right. I mean, that was just the beginning of Jerk-Ass Homer in this episode, though. I didn't like when Lisa and Bart actually go to see George Lucas or Randall Curtis. George
really
Lucas. His name is George Lucas. When they actually see him, Lisa just has this very on-the-nose criticism of the new Star Wars movies, where she's just like, oh, better technology doesn't mean better storytelling.
yeah.
It's just like, you really just...
It's like, oh man, I didn't realize it was Sunday because I'm at church being preached to, even though The Simpsons is on Sunday.
That's right.
Never mind. Extra beat!
2 extra beat!
Ka-chunk!
We'll get there.
We won't.
And then I didn't like when Homer and Marge are drunk later. They're just tossing George Lucas back and forth. I thought that was really unnecessary and extra beady.
Yeah, and
Extra
also
beat.
a little silly, like... what,
Yeah, it was
I know
like
he's
cartoony,
I know he's
crazy
short,
nonsense
but you're
land.
tossing this guy 30 feet in the air.
Didn't like it.
That was really lame.
Didn't like it.
Yeah, so they go...
Wait, this is one last thing that's sort of related to Cosmic Wars. When they're at the Cosmic Wars ranch and they go into the mocap studio and they're like, what alien is this guy creating? And it's like, actually, it's a wrapping loaf of garlic bread for an Olive Garden commercial. I thought that was very funny.
So in that one scene, you have an amazing case of voice acting and a terrible case of voice acting. So Harry Shearer made that garlic... I mean, just the idea of a wrapping garlic loaf is hilarious from Olive Garden. But Harry Shearer's delivery of that line was perfect.
Yep.
Whereas I can't stand Hank Azaria. I love Hank Azaria. I can't stand Hank Azaria's hip-hop voice. He does it in a lot of post-classic episodes, I guess because hip-hop culture wasn't quite a thing yet before 98, 99.
No, it was.
It was, but...
Maybe not as mainstream.
maybe white people doing hip-hop wasn't as mainstream.
Yeah,
a thing.
maybe.
I don't know. But...
Eminem hadn't come.
But since I don't think he ever does it in the classic years, whereas there's plenty of instances where he does, yo, I'm doing my hip-hop voice, yo, I'm a rapping tooth in a toothpaste commercial, or in this case, the rapping garlic bread. I just never, I don't know, I just thought it was really cringeworthy, old white guy doing rap.
So I don't even remember, was he the voice of the garlic loaf?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't remember it being bad, but I was kind of just laughing at the idea.
I mean, it just reminded
the animation of
it just reminded me of all the other times he does it. It's just it just reeks of, hey, like I'm an older white guy, and this is my interpretation. This is my like facetious impression of hip hop culture, and almost to the extent almost blackface in voice, but it's more hip hop culture, than anything. It just reminds me of like my parents, like just trying to like do their take on hip hop.
Hey, Jackie boy, we're here to rap a little bit with you about the extra beat.
I open that door.
Is it time to come in? No?
So before we wrap up the Star Wars, I guess we should point out that that's it for the Star Wars in the actual episode.
Yeah, it was only in the first act.
And then it just stopped, like it wraps itself up. There is an arc. You can call it an A plot or a B plot, but it has this weird distinction of not continuing throughout the episode.
Well,
it's almost kind of its own, because the Marge drinking thing only comes in the late in this plot. It's really kind of just two separate episodes.
Well, I actually like that. I think the structure of this episode was very classic.
Really?
Yeah, I don't like some of the things that happen, and we'll get to that later, but the whole idea that this is kind of, this whole Star Wars plot is what starts off the real plot that comes in Acts 2 and 3.
I mean, usually when if you're talking about like classic Simpsons and the classic non sequitur first act, it's usually like some random.
It's usually the very beginning.
And it's also like a random thing leads to another random thing leads to another random thing. Eventually, it leads to a chain of events that get to a plot. Where this was like pretty much the first act was its own self-contained episode, and then the next two acts were their own self.
This is not the best example, but the first one that I thought that came to mind that had a similar structure was the one where they go to Japan. Which some people don't think it's classic.
It's not a classic.
It's season 10.
It's not even close.
Season 10.
No, it's not even
because that one starts off. It's all the first act is all Chuck Garabedian, and when they were at the Super Savers program, and then it's at the very end of the first act that they go to Japan, and then acts 2 and 3 are all about Japan.
Yeah.
If you give me more time, I can think of a better episode as an example.
I don't know. It's just kind of, I don't like it. It's just weird to have a plot just wrap itself up completely. At least have like a couple of token
Homer loves
scenes.
Flanders. That was kind of like that.
What's the first act?
The end of the first act is when Homer realizes he loves Flanders.
What's the first act about?
I can't remember.
It's probably just a bunch of scenes. I don't think it's like its own self. Like this. I don't know, this
Flanders has tickets and he gives them to Homer. Now I'm just recapping old episodes that we're not talking about.
This was more. I think the difference between this and the other examples is it was such a distinct. Like this is the plot. This is the and then it just like I fully expected it to keep going as a B plot throughout the rest of the episode.
I was glad that it didn't because I think they said enough in the first act.
I'm glad it didn't too because it sucked, but it also was just it's still kind of weak structure. I don't know.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Look, I might think a building is ugly, but I hope it's can support itself on a minute.
This is true. I always hope the buildings I'm in support me.
Whoa, Mama, finally some action.
Mr. Chairman, I propose a procedural amendment to Space Bill number 371.
You'll wait your turn.
Very well.
They decide to go to North California so the Simpsons can so Bart and Lisa can talk to Randall Lucas.
And they get there very, very easily. It's just like, well, let's go to California, and then the next scene they're just there.
Homer goes, and I just got fired again, which was a nice little meta. It's like, Homer's always getting a new job, and
this was season 15, so this is 11 years ago. But I feel like they'd already hit that a lot.
I mean, it's a cop out for them to get going, but I in this case, I kind of like the meta reference. Although you're right, maybe we watched the episodes out of order. Maybe it had been done to death by then.
Yeah.
So while Bart and Lisa are on the ranch, Homer and Marge go to like a Napa Valley kind of place, vineyard, and it's called Lush Valley. That's a great. I think that's like a very classic Simpsons kind of.
That's very, very clever.
It's like clever.
See what you did there.
It's clever, but it's kind of easy. It really reminded me of like a classic era storefront name.
Definitely.
So Marge and Homer are drinking at the winery, and they're starting to get sloshed. Or actually, before they get sloshed, they tried their first wine, and Marge says, "Oh, it tastes even better with a Jolly Rancher I already had in my mouth."
Right.
And that's such a great it's a great Marge line. It's also a great kind of like working class that reminds me of like season 1, season 2 Simpsons where it's just like you go into the winery and you have Jolly Rancher in your mouth. It's just kind of this like not blue collar, but
like out of touch, not even out of touch. Just Marge kind of walks to the beat of her own drum, I guess.
And just it's like a mom thing to do, but it's also kind of like you're doing it wrong. You're in a winery,
right?
Which leads me to one of my favorite jokes in the entire episode. So they I forget what they say, and they're drunk. Oh yeah, I think they're drunk already. And the wine guy.
Well, I remember what the setup was. Homer says, "Oh, I love the it's aged well, and I love the full body." And then the wine's not bad either, because like he was talking about Marge. And then they start drinking and kissing and laughing, and then the guy says,
and I think it's Harry Shearer again, who was just on a roll this episode. And he goes, "I always get the hicks on Saturday." It's just a great
That's one of the things Harry Shearer does best is like the one-off, just kind of disillusioned worker characters.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't come back, I think that's something that they're really going to lose in the next 2 seasons.
I don't know. I'm sure the 72-year-old Chinese immigrant they get off YouTube who can do his voices perfectly.
I would love it if they got a 72-year-old Chinese immigrant.
So they get drunk, and they're actually getting along very well. Oh, actually, I wanted to talk about real quick in that scene when right before when they're talking about the ankles, the broken ankles.
Yeah.
Marge says, Homer doesn't really want to hang out with Marge, and Marge says, "But you're my best friend." And Homer's like, "Only legally." And at first I didn't like that. It's like, oh man, that's really mean of him to say.
Yeah.
But
He gets meaner.
But I get it, because when you're dating somebody very close and you're married, you call him your best friend, and sometimes it's the case, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes you have a strong romantic relationship without it being the case. But I thought it was just really mean of him to say.
Yeah.
But then what I realized was it was actually foreshadowing for when they start bonding over the beers, and they actually do
Right.
become best friends.
Yeah.
So I like that, for what it's worth.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I did like the structure of this episode where it was, they're married but maybe not so happy with each other, and then
they
drinking
just
kind
don't
of
have the
brings
same
them together.
interests. Yeah.
It's kind of a thing they can bond over, and they're both like having fun. Marge especially
she's
has like a
letting
renewed
loose,
love for her
yeah.
husband. Yeah, and then I like the idea that Homer is the one that fucks it up.
Yeah.
Maybe the execution of it not so great, but
You know what this reminds me of? Of what I consider a post-classic episode, but if you're throwing the shitty Japan one in here, who knows what you think?
that episode is not shitty. That's a good episode.
The one where Lisa goes to the museum by herself.
Yeah.
And
Lost Star Lisa season 9.
yeah, which I consider post-classic.
Well-
But although it has a lot of great moments, and one of my favorite ones from season 9. And the arc of the episode is Lisa learns how to let loose like Homer, and,
Right.
And that's how she ends up breaking into the museum and seeing this thing that nobody had seen in thousands of years. And it was just like her finally like letting herself accept some of Homer's worldview, even though it's not the best worldview, and she getting something out of it, and that's pretty much what this is, even though it's. More cynical. It's just basically through alcoholism.
Yeah.
But it's this time, instead of Lisa, it's Marge taking a little bit of Homer's worldview and
Loosening up and having too many drinks.
It's pretty much the same plot. So except
that's
the
true.
dynamic between the two are different. The relationship's different. So for what I do like the plot. I do think it was a good idea for a story.
Yeah, I do too.
It also reminds me of a different way Homer and Marge bond. Another post-classic episode is when they start having sex in public. And
It was very similar to that episode. Yeah.
I had flashes of Quincy. I had flashes of that episode.
Yeah, no, I did too, and I don't necessarily love that episode, but structure-wise, it's solid. It's the
Yeah.
same kind of thing, them coming together, doing something that's out of the norm.
So they do the thing where they're tossing the George Lucas. That's kind of lame, but I did really like the animation in that same scene when they come up to Bart and Lisa, and they're wasted.
Yeah.
And the director, the animation team decided they use kind of like a fisheye lens from like the kid's point of view. So
Yeah.
it's like looking up and it's low to the ground, and it's as a fisheye lens is like an extreme wide lens where the closer you get to it, the more warped you become. And
Like a peephole kind of thing.
Yeah, like a Missy Misdemeanor video.
Missy Misdemeanor
Missy
Elliott.
Elliott video. You've seen it. And so Homer does it, and he has like all the wine bottles on each one of his fingers. That was kind of lame. But then Marge is a much funner drunk.
Well, they're like, Mom is going to be real upset about Homer, and then she comes in and she's
Yeah.
also wasted.
And she like leans into the fisheye lens,
Yeah.
and it's all warped.
and
it just-
her pupils are dilated.
yeah,
I
and
think.
it just fits the fact that they're inebriated. Like the animation kind of shows that, and
Yeah.
also it kind of fits the fun vibe because like Marge is just a blast when she's drunk.
Drunk Marge is
because
great.
she's still like warm-hearted and she's kind of letting loose. It fits her personality so well.
And that harkens back to season 1, my friend.
Way
when,
back.
There's no There's no disgrace like home. I think.
Yeah,
was the title of
the
episode,
famous
the Dr. Marvin Monroe
Yeah,
one.
where they all electrocute each other in the chairs.
Yep.
She gets drunk at the Mr. Burns
The
or the
Mr.
country club.
at
or-
the Mr. Burns like employee party.
Right, and it wasn't quite the same because Marge wasn't developed as a character yet.
I want some more booze for my butt.
There's plenty of booze in the bar, babe. It's me, Lisa.
Hey, Dad, don't talk like that to Mom. See,
I'm not Dad. I'm Lisa. This is Homer.
I don't even know my own family, babe.
I don't know how to do a good Dino, so we'll just leave it at that. Who's the other one? Ron
Joey
Livingston?
Bishop. Yeah, Ron Livingston and Swingers.
Swingers, yeah. He's
alright.
the Joey Bishop of the group, isn't
Fair
it?
enough, yeah.
Maybe that other
It's
guy
fair
is
to say.
nobody is.
Who?
The fifth guy.
Sue.
Yeah. Maybe he was Joey
What happened to
Bishop.
that guy?
died.
Who's that actor? Did he really die?
I don't know. So they get drunk. So they're getting drunk. They're having fun. They realize there's like you said, there's a passion renewed in their relationship. They buy a bunch of wine for home.
Yep.
They bring it back home, which is again usually when it's a Simpsons go-to. That's the episode. Usually that's the second and third act. This was weird in that it was kind of the first act because they go to Northern California.
That's why
they never come back.
I was kind of wondering why even make it Northern California, other than the fact that in real life, the Skywalker Ranch is there and also Napa Valley's there. But you could have just said
Especially if you're making it up. Yeah, it's
If you're making it up,
Randall
like-
Curtis is from Springfield.
Right, exactly.
And a Springfield winery would probably be hilarious in like the way that anything in Springfield is usually,
Yeah.
you know.
Then you could throw in some, locals.
That's a good point too.
Sideshow
yeah.
Mel could have been there.
Yeah.
I'm Sideshow Mel.
I'm Sideshow Mel.
And this is how
This
I
is
talk.
how I talk. If you didn't see that one reference we did 6 episodes ago in the middle, probably when you zoned out.
We did it. We did that a few times.
We only did the one time. We do a collective Sideshow Mel impression where I am always half a beat off.
And we're
And
going,
going
to do it again
today. And we find it very funny, and we hope you do too.
You don't. Everyone just likes Grufik. That old sad bastard.
So I think it would have been great it would have made more sense to do it in Springfield. It's weird that they did a go-to and it was just kind of for a couple of scenes.
It was.
So they bring the wine home. They build a little wine cellar under the sink.
Yeah, that was cute.
And then Homer drinks his wine out of his favorite cup, which is what they use for the laundry detergent.
Yes.
And it's like all red and fizzy, and he drinks it.
I thought that was really funny.
I think that's
that got me.
I think the visual of just fizzy wine is just like that's a Simpsons thing.
Homer drank it and he had bubbles on his
Yeah.
mouth. And he was just like,
fizzy wine on South Park probably wouldn't work. Fizzy wine on Family Guy probably not quite right. Maybe fizzy wine in Bob's Burgers, but I feel like Simpsons, that's the tone and that's the world where fizzy wine is fucking hysterical.
yeah, fizzy wine, done. I liked that in that scene they're drinking, and the drinking was never like a bad thing. And in fact, it was really cute because they were kind of drunk and doing drunken impressions of each other.
I think that was one of the best scenes of the episode.
Yeah,
it was
it was
one of
very
the
sweet.
best scenes that we've seen so far in our 30-something odd episodes that we've covered.
I agree with you. I really liked it a lot.
It was just very it was a fun way to show them bonding. It's like how do you show Homer and Marge bonding? After all this time being together, I would think the way the show has been lately was they would just spell it out and say it's like, oh, I didn't realize drinking with you made it so easy to bond with you, and just leave it at that. It would just be this bad exposition.
Well,
But,
to be fair, later
they do
on,
say that. Yeah, I know.
Mo said it later. Yeah.
But that is a great, innovative, creative way to show them bonding by having them both do impressions of each other.
Yeah.
Especially because Homer has done an impression of Marge before, and it's always hilarious. Dan Castellaneta's as Marge is hilarious. Julie Kavner's Homer isn't quite as funny, but it's almost more heartwarming because it's almost more true to her character because she's like kind of letting it out, like she's not just doing a Homer voice, but she's also like, I'm a big oaf and I do stupid things to get away with it.
Right.
So she's like kind of passive aggressively like letting out what she actually thinks. It was just a really brilliant scene. Homer doing Marge's laugh, I don't know if we've seen that before. That was adorable.
No, it was great. It was a great scene, and I actually really, up until the drunk driving incident, I actually really liked the storyline.
Yeah.
It was very sweet to see like Homer and Marge reignite their not so much their passion for each other, but just their liking of each other and like wanting to spend time with one another.
And I can
good
even
plot.
see and doing it through drinking while cynical.
No, but it makes total sense
yeah.
because that's the thing Homer likes, and Marge does too. Season 1.
And even the alcoholism aside, drinking loosens you up. I feel like I've probably had a relationship or two where we just got along better when we were drunk. I mean, I know there was one girl I dated freshman year where I don't even think I actually had spent time with her sober until like 3 weeks into the relationship.
Wow.
But no, I'm talking when I was older. I feel like there's instances where you just kind of like have more fun when you're drunk. You just kind of loosen up. So I think it was a relatable a plot that hasn't been done before, and I'll take it.
Agreed.
They leave to go drinking out again.
And Homer takes Marge to Moe's, which again was another sweet gesture that shows the bonding.
This is my world. This is what I do. But before they go to Moe's, he leaves and he goes, "All right, kids, we're going to Moe's. TV's in charge." And that reminds they've made very similar jokes in the classic era. But I just love the idea that the TV being in charge. That's great. Go to bed when it tells you. I like that joke.
I like that too.
So we should talk about this Mo scene, right?
Yeah. So let's talk about the Mo thing. They ask for wine at Moe's, and Mo says, "Oh, all I got is this old bottle, and it was like a Grand Latour, I think. It's like some
I'm
really
assuming a
famous
famous wine, yeah.
bottle of wine from 1886." And Mo is like, "Here you go, that'll be $4," and he pours it for them. And then for no reason, he's like, now let me look up the value of that wine. And then he realizes it was like a crazy expensive bottle of wine.
The joke again, extra beat.
Yeah.
Because it was funny just to see the bottle and see the.
Right.
I don't know
We
wine
get it.
brands. I drink wine flavored beverage from Dwayne Reed Pharmacy, but
Wine flavored beverine?
yeah. But I got the joke from the year, the 18.
Right. You didn't need to spell out like that the wine is worth
And-
a lot of money. We got it. We're like somewhat intelligent people.
And
We
well,
can
I-
induce that.
And I don't want to make us sound like complete idiots because I think it's clear the writers knew that they were spelling out the joke, like they were making that the joke in itself because it
know.
was so drawn out. It's Mo going, and now I will look at something I should have done beforehand, and I will look at the price, and oh God.
But how
And,
often do they go to that explaining the joke
Yeah,
well?
it was
And how
ov-
often does it work?
It was over explaining, non angry, normal tone.
That's right. That's
And,
exactly what it was.
No, yeah, I mean, just because you're doing a meta joke and admitting that you're doing this joke, it doesn't make it
doesn't make it
necessarily
better.
funny. You can do it funny. You can make a meta work, breaking the fourth wall, but in this case, it was just like cringeworthy and bad.
It just feels like talking
poorly
down to the
written.
audience.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we know you dummies don't know anything about wine,
And
so
then
let's spell out the joke.
This actually had an extra double beat.
Double beat.
Because he says, "Oh God, I'm so upset. I have to wipe my eyes with this lost Shakespeare
Oh,
play."
yeah, I forgot about that.
Even that, like, if you're saying lost Shakespeare play, then you would assume that it has some value.
Yeah.
It's not like you're like, "Oh, this
That's
like."
a great point. I didn't
yeah.
even think of that.
I mean, that's really nitpicking, but
No, it was a crappy nail into a shitty piece of wood.
crappy nail and a shitty piece of wood might have to be the name of this episode. So then there's we haven't seen one of these in a while, the famous post-classic
the-
8-second
Yep,
montage
classic.
where they pick a song that's very on the nose, in this
Yep.
case, Let's Misbehave,
Yep.
and they play it for about 8 seconds. They had just enough time to get in the words, Let's Misbehave.
Right, and then cut.
And it's over 3 or 4 scenes that are, by definition, a montage, but not really.
Well, it's mostly them going to the movies, drunk.
And it
They
was just
see-
bad movie. Oh, it was...
It was Days of Wine and Roses. It was Barfly.
Yeah, it was alcohol movies.
Right, and then it was the Lizzie McGuire movie for some reason.
And they come out like shell shocked because
Yeah.
and like that's a really dated reference.
Yeah, I barely remember what Lizzie McGuire is.
At some point, Marge gets a hangover and
Yeah, well,
decides.
it's after the montage, after
Right.
their like night out drinking.
It kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, yeah, it makes
Yeah.
sense. She's not as a veteran and drinker as Homer, so
Right, not a high
eventually you would
tolerance.
catch up to her. But I don't know, it seemed kind of out of nowhere. It was almost like Deus Ex is usually what the phrase you use when it just kind of wraps itself up to wrap itself up. In this case, it was kind of like an inciting incident for inciting incident's sake, where. It's just like, nah, all right, I'm over drinking. Like I said, there is an
Yeah.
argument to be made that she just, she can't keep up with Homer, but it just, I don't know, it just kind of felt like it came out of nowhere.
didn't
It's like
bother me
one day she's hungover.
Well, it came after that montage, so if you
I
assume they're
guess.
doing that in one night, it was probably a lot of drinking
Yeah,
for her.
I guess. But so that montage, they do a very good animation job of depicting a hangover where everything's
Sure do.
too loud, and she hears the dripping of the faucet.
Not even just the animation, the sound design.
Yeah,
and
that's what I
everything.
mean. Yeah, the production.
Yeah.
The pee in our hippo.
The P&R hippo.
Yeah, so the sound design's great. My favorite joke by far was Flanders combing his
his
mustache,
mustache,
and
yep.
they do like an extreme close up of the hairs bristling through the comb.
Yeah,
that was
and
just.
the noise getting
Yeah.
louder and louder.
And like it's not just funny because it's a mustache bristling, but just a close up on Ned Flanders' face. Like they knew
Yeah.
the Simpsons writers knew what they were doing. They know that
Yeah.
a close up of Flanders doing that, it works for that character.
Totally.
And then Homer stomps up the stairs, and she's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, just testing out the new ski boots. We're breaking them in." That was a funny joke. Like that sequence was very reminiscent of the good years.
It was. In fact, it was very well animated, very well directed, and I think overall this episode was actually pretty strong in the animation and direction. Like I
Yeah,
noticed a
yeah.
lot of like classic type things that maybe in the way they look, maybe not so much funny. Just
Yeah.
even the staging of things.
No,
Like,
it's a good point.
sometimes they have these nowadays they have these like really bland like static shocks.
Static
Shocks.
Shock. That's the
That's-
Spider-Man spinoff.
No, it's a DC fig.
Oh, that's right. So I think that was probably, I would say, I don't remember the jokes, but they're in my notes, so I could be wrong. But I feel like that first half of the episode was more consistently funny than the second. I think there was a lot more
Yeah, you're definitely
cringe-worthy
right.
jokes starting,
Yeah.
and I think the big turning point was Homer's Bible.
Yeah, so this was a runner throughout the whole episode that I did not like it all. I guess you didn't like it either.
Yeah,
since you just
because
brought
he
it up.
says he'll reduce his drinking in support of Marge giving up her drinking. Was that it?
Yes, and he says, if I need strength, I'll look to the good book. And he takes out the Bible and he opens it up and it's hollowed out and there's a flask inside.
Right. A really easy, dumb joke. It's
Yep.
like, yeah, I'll look to the good book, which has alcohol in it. And that's terrible. But then he drinks it, and then they just stay on him drinking for like 10 seconds. And then he goes,
What a great line.
Yeah, he gets sick, and he just goes, let's do it together.
It's the gospel according to Puke. Extra beat.
Well,
That's the
one
joke.
Beat. That's one beat. But,
Where's the beat?
I mean, yes, you can make the pun that puke sounds like Luke, and when you're drinking out of a Bible, that's probably the most apt time to use this line, but that doesn't make
But
it...
maybe the best time to use it is
is never. Yeah, I would say so. I feel
Yeah.
like that's just, it's kind of like, if somebody invents the time machine, they realize it's just,
Yeah.
it shouldn't be unleashed on the world, and
No,
they just,
no.
it dies with them. That joke should have died with this writer.
Yes.
And the writer should have died immediately
He
for
is
writing
dead.
this.
As soon as his pen was done, he
He
dropped,
just dropped dead.
His art
My
burst.
work here is done. And
My masterwork.
yeah, so that was just a terrible line, and then it was just unnecessary.
Yeah.
So they go to Oktoberfest, which I did like because he convinces Marge, look, we'll just go and have fun.
Right, and Marge isn't going to drink.
Yeah, and he's like, I'm sure there's not that many beers at Oktoberfest. It's an easy joke, but it
right,
works.
right. Well, because it was the reveal that they were going to Oktoberfest, so I think it sort of worked.
So there's a band there that we noticed, and we knew it had to be something because it was
Yeah.
there.
They're called Brave Combo, and they kind of just linger on them for a second. They're playing at Oktoberfest. They are apparently a 2-time Grammy Award-winning polka group
Wow,
that
Grammy.
Matt Groening became a fan of in the 80s when he was a college radio DJ.
Oh, a Grammy. Don't throw your trash down. Oh, that's cool. And
It is. I guess he reached out to them to see if they wanted to be in an episode, and they obviously did because who the hell wouldn't
they're
want to be on The
probably
Simpsons?
retired mailmen at this point. So
Yep. That was
mean.
another name of our bowling team,
How-
retired mailmen.
Why am I judging this niche musician,
I don't know.
this niche band that is doing it on their off time?
They got 2 more Grammys than you have, Picone. All right?
Well, if they were Grammys for podcasts, I'm pretty sure it's safe to say
We'd have all of them.
that we'd have all of them, if only for our amazing sound design work in our extra beat alarm.
Extra beat.
That sounds like it would be the theme song to if Laugh Command had like a late 80s reboot, like Laugh Command 89. Laugh Command 89!
Boom, 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 89.
Starring Richard Grieco. Oh, so yeah, you're talking about the animation and also the figures of Homer and Marge. I don't remember. I wish I could remember. We've watched season 15 before in the show. And we've watched seasons around there.
Yep.
Even recently, but I can't seem to remember them looking quite as even though it's not HD yet. It always looked kind of cleaner in this era than it did. In the classic years when it was more hand drawn looking. And,
Exactly. I think
and
it's less hand
consistent.
animation.
Yeah, but in this episode, I felt like, I don't know, there's a scene where Marge and Homer were getting in the car before the DUI, I think, or around Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
And it just really looked like really crude hand-drawn, like season 7, season 8.
Yeah.
Even more like season 5, season 6.
I think it was the scene where they get in the car and,
Yeah.
and Homer's too drunk and he can't find where the ignition is.
And
Yeah.
it was like home, felt like nostalgic, like I was back home. Like just seeing them look like
Yeah.
that again was very nice.
Even just the lighting, like the inside of the car, but it's not really something we see a lot in at least the episodes we've watched from around this time. Just the lighting, it was all very
Right.
like season 5, season 6 reminiscent.
So then Homer drives drunk, which arguably is, that's a controversial thing to do. I mean, a lot of
It
people
is.
have done it, but it's very frowned upon because lots of people die unnecessarily every year from it.
Yes. It's also
and
illegal.
And it's illegal, and this show's shown illegal things before. And
Well,
funny
yeah,
way.
but-
this is a little bit more serious because, again, people die and unnecessary, and it's a epidemic in this country when it's very, very preventable, and people are stupid.
Yes.
So it's kind
We
of
don't have self-driving cars yet, people.
It's like I'm trying to think if you saw Homer do another reprehensible crime like of that level, like you're not gonna see him murder somebody, but murder's a little bit worse to be. I mean, it's worse, but it can be murder. Drunk driving. I'm not gonna.
It would be manslaughter, it wouldn't be murder.
Right. Oh, sorry, Mr. Lawyer.
There's no intent, Jack.
But like I'm trying to think, but whereas there's more innocent kind of laws that it's funny to watch Homer break, like when he becomes a moonshiner.
Right.
So it's weird to see him do an actual crime, but it's also. I'm not sure. I'm not against it per se because it's also showing that he's a fault. He's a guy. He's flawed.
Yeah.
It makes sense for his character. He's certainly done it before on the show. They've shown him drunk driving.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't against it on principle.
Right.
Him driving drunk is bad, but that's not the problem. The problem is when they crash and he switches places with Marge.
Well, we'll get to that. That's the crux of the episode.
Right.
Yeah, of course that's a problem. But just in general, I don't know. Like I'm trying to think if there were things that I don't know. It's almost like it's condoning it in a way. I mean, they've definitely done it, and more so in other episodes. They've condoned it because he does it with very little repercussions, and it's meant to be played as a joke.
Right.
I don't know. It was just kind of weird to see, and I agree. I wasn't against it on principle, but the fact that it was even made me start thinking about it makes me think that there's something a little off there.
Yeah.
I don't know. You're not mad. Like I feel like you just said it. You're not mad at Homer for drunk driving. You're mad at him for switching places with Marge and blaming on Marge. But
right.
Shouldn't you be mad at him for drunk driving?
Well, yes. I mean, driving drunk is a reckless act, as is. You could kill somebody as you could with other. Like you were saying with the moonshining thing. Like that was illegal, but no one could really get hurt.
Right.
With
I mean, they could go
moonshining.
blind, I guess. But,
well, yeah.
But I agree. Like my gut I'm not against it. But don't you think we should be just as appalled that he's drunk driving, or at least like 80% is of appalled of him drunk driving than blaming it on Marge?
I think it's not so much that he's doing it; it's the fact that there are no negative repercussions of him doing it.
That's a good point too. All right, so let's talk about the actual incident because the animation in it is great. He's you don't even know he's had an accident yet until he opens up. Was it a beer or was it a soda?
I think he opens up a soda because he's trying to calm the buzz, I guess.
And everything looks normal until it's a close up inside the car and he opens up the soda and the soda inexplicably just goes
right to the ceiling.
Goes up.
Yeah.
And then you quickly realize that he's upside down already. He's already had the accident, and that was a great way to reveal it.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Great way to depict the accident, just get it over with. It was a fun animation trick. Everybody loves when something's upside down, you don't realize it.
Everybody loves it.
Everybody loves it.
You're upside down and you don't even realize it.
Your listeners have no idea we record every podcast upside down like Batman.
That's right.
Like we just hang.
We're just hanging
with our
on
arms
our perches,
crossed,
swinging back and forth, recording the podcast.
I don't know why Batman felt the need to do that, but I mean, I get the bats do it. Yeah,
bat symbolism. Yeah. So Homer crashes. He's like, he hears the police coming, and he's like, "Oh my God, I already have a DUI," which I guess is from Duffless.
Oh, I would just
think it's a reference from that.
I guess I guess you're right. I thought it was more of just a general. He's probably got like a bunch of them because he's an asshole.
So he switches places with Marge. He puts Marge in the driver's seat, and then he hides in the woods.
Marge, he hides in the woods. I think that's also a big part of why this is worse than him just drunk driving is that he's betraying. Not only is he betraying his wife, not only is he betraying beloved character Marge, he's betraying beloved character Marge after they've just been closer than they've been in a long time.
And it's good to, you prop him up so you can knock him down, I guess, as the protagonist of the show. But you're also making Homer extremely unlikable because I don't think anyone would say, like, yeah, I would do the same thing in that situation. Well, that's horrible.
We were just talking about this off air. This is actually a very, very similar plot to an episode that aired 6 months earlier.
Well, yes.
Arrested Development did an episode called My Mother the Car, where his mother crashed a car driving and then switched places with his son. Although it really fits her unlikable, her likable. You love to hate.
Lucille Bluth is someone you love to hate. That's perfect.
Exactly.
And she's this manipulative kind of bitch. It's the only word for it.
Homer B is what Buster would call her.
The B word. But Homer, he's not supposed to be like. See, this sadistic guy, he's just a lovable oaf.
And I think a lot of jerk-ass Homer and a lot of the post-classic Homer that people don't like, it almost seems like the writers think you are supposed to love to hate him. Like they're almost writing Homer like. Well,
we've said this before.
Like they're intentionally thinking it's like you're supposed to hate him. That's part, but you love to hate him.
They don't view him as a character. I think we said this a few episodes ago. They view him as just this like joke machine, and he can do anything, and people will still like him. But that's not really true. Like he does something like this. Like I'm gonna remember. Like remember that time Homer framed his wife for a crime.
Now I was thinking about this, and I think. I don't know if you can make this work, him switching with Marge. It's such a heinous thing to do.
I don't think that you can.
But I
yeah.
think there was one way maybe, or at least would have made it easier to swallow. And I'm shocked they just didn't do this because you needed it. But so the only reason he switches with Marge, the only reason it says is because, oh man, if I get another DUI, I'll lose my license. Not, oh man, I'm going to go to jail for 20 years. I'm going to go to jail for 30 years. Nothing, so you're going to lose your license. Big deal. There's been episodes, I think there's been an episode where he lost his license at some point.
Duffless.
Yeah,
also.
exactly.
Yeah.
Duffless. So, it's not, the stakes aren't, it's not a compelling enough reason. They should have set up in Act 1 some kind of reason why he really needs his car. If that's what, something, so that if he is caught, if he is behind the wheel, it is detrimental to the point where it has to be something where if Marge was awake, she would still take the blame. She would go, okay, we got to avoid the situation. Maybe he really wants to drive somewhere. He's visiting his mother or something.
Yeah.
Maybe it has nothing to do with him losing his car. Maybe it's something else.
What if they did this? That's good, but what if they also did this? Marge isn't passed out; she's just drunk, and she says to him, like, "Let's just switch places," because of what you were just saying.
Right.
And then the rest of the episode isn't so much that Homer is this horrible person who's lied to send his wife to get her arrested and put her in a rehab, and then lies to his children about it, and lies to basically everybody.
He just feels bad.
Instead of that, she has to maybe go to like court-mandated rehab or something, and he's not going to see her for a few weeks, and he feels awful and tries to get her out.
Because he let her take the blame.
Right, and he feels bad about
that.
that.
Certainly helped.
Because what actually happens in the episode, we're kind of jumping ahead, but we're talking about the whole kind of terribleness of this plot at this point. What actually happens is Marge does go to rehab, and Homer, in one scene, he's lying to the children about like what happened to say, oh, your mother did it in a jerk-ass way that we'll talk to when we get there. But in the very next scene, he just shows up at rehab and says, yeah, I want to get my wife out. There's no reason. He just shows up and says, like, yeah, I miss her. I just want her out.
Yeah.
And then the second he sees her, he's like, I lied. I'm sorry.
He doesn't even say that. He tries to sneak in by lying about a package.
Yes.
Even though then the very next beat, Marge just comes up and talks to him, which implies that he didn't have to sneak in the first place. He had open visitation rights.
Yeah.
So that whole scene was pointless and stupid.
Yep.
And not funny.
Just there's never a moment where Homer experiences like a change or anything even a little bit. It's just
he does give up clear liquor at the end of the episode.
Well, we'll get to the end of the episode. But I think one other thing that made it kind of sting even more is not only did he switch places with Marge and let her take the rap, but while the police are there, he stays at the scene, hiding in the bushes in the forest, making animal noises.
Yeah.
Like, did we need him to do that?
And he actually
like, it's
says,
not bad
this
enough.
is like the lowest point in my life. This is the worst I've ever been.
Again, that doesn't make it better. We know it's the lowest point you've ever been.
Yeah, we're watching the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It would have been way better if Marge consciously took, even if she was drunk, if she took the blame and then they both regretted it later. He just was racked with guilt. She's in rehab talking to other actual addicts, and she realizes that she's enabling Homer by doing this, and that she
can
made
realize,
a mistake.
oh, I shouldn't just drink to have fun with my husband. We should have fun without drinking.
And I should let him take responsibility for his mistakes, and I gotta stop covering for him. And that
what a much better episode.
Yeah, it would actually given both characters some kind of arc and some motivation.
Right.
Yeah,
things would have happened and made sense.
Yeah,
the way it actually happened, it stunk.
That's why it's called worst episode ever, and
that's right,
best
folks.
episode ever. Why every Simpsons gets better with every year.
Bee! What's the buzz on these Simpsons apps? So yeah, then we're in the third act, and like I said, Homer's just lying about it.
Yeah, he goes to Moe's.
He goes to Moe's. There was one great sight gag where Moe says, oh, Marge isn't coming anymore, but I installed the bidet for her. And it's just the water fountain with a stepladder next to it.
So disgusting,
so
but
gross.
so funny and so Moe. It was perfect.
That was good. And then Homer confesses to Moe that this is what he did. And they did a kind of joke that was not what I thought they were going to do. He said, oh, I should be sipping warm, watered-down beer out of a chipped glass.
He doesn't say this. Moe says it to him.
Moe says it, yeah. He says, you deserve to be drinking out of a chipped glass, watered-down beer on a bar stool with a nail sticking up out of it. And I thought the joke was going to be that he was already doing all those things.
That's what I thought, too, yeah.
And they didn't do that at all. It was just then Moe took out a chipped glass and made him sit on that stool.
I think the point of this scene was they were the writers knew how reprehensible Homer's actions were. So they really
So they wanted him to be tortured a little bit?
Yeah, and they wanted to point it out. They wanted to be like, we're acknowledging that this is bad. Like, Moe is so disgusted with Homer that he's just jabbing him with a stick.
Right.
But it just wasn't funny. It was just kind of, I don't know, it didn't.
You know what they
didn't
could
try
have
hard
done
enough.
is not made Homer deplorable in the episode, because they are the ones writing it.
That's asking a lot, Mohole.
I'm trying. So Homer calls the rehab place, I guess just rehab, trying to get Marge.
They
and
tried to make him go. That's all we can.
That's all we can legally use. You all know where the next word was. Homer calls up Rehab, and he gets put on hold. Now, we don't hear the hold music. Instead, Homer just sings the hold music.
No, he puts them on hold.
He puts them on hold?
Yeah, they said, well, all right, please hold. And he goes, I'll put you on hold. And he puts them on
That
hold.
was the joke? The quote joke was? Yeah. Well, it was terrible because it was basically just a minute of loud, obnoxious, jerk-ass Homer
it felt like
singing.
10 minutes. It
Just
went
being like,
on.
you're on hold. I don't even remember what it was.
He was singing some 60s, 70s song. He would interrupt the song and say, your call is important to us.
Yeah,
and
it was
starts singing again.
terrible.
Dan Castellaneta, talented performer, love the guy. I get the feeling he just likes to sing. And they let him do it, and you gotta stop letting him sing.
Yeah,
it's just unnecessary and awful.
I guess I missed the thing where it was Homer putting them on hold, which, whatever, that does nothing. But I missed the days, remember when, like, Homer called the Fatherhood Institute, and they put him on hold, and it was the Cats in the Cradle was playing.
That's a great one. My favorite is when Marge calls a mental institution.
Yeah.
And they put her on
Crazy.
hold. And she just starts crying.
Yes.
It's brutal.
And then the final time I think they did that was Treehouse of Horror 3, where they call up the Krusty the Clown because the doll was evil, and it says, everybody loves the clown.
Yeah, no, that's very funny.
They couldn't have done something like that. I don't know. And that...
Yeah, they could have played that, tried to make...
Literally anything. Not just not Homer just being a jerk when he's already being such a prick.
That whole scene is probably in my top 3
worst
scenes we've covered on this podcast.
I got to agree with you, because then they do it again in this. It's the same scene, but then the kids come up and they're like, "Why did Mom have to go to rehab?" And Homer basically lies to them, and then starts like scream singing MacArthur Park at them and being like, "Someone left the cake out." We can't sing anymore, but it was ridiculous because it just kept going and it never got better. It just got a lot worse.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, you're right. It never got better. If you're gonna do an extended scene like that, for instance, the rake gag from Sideshow Bob, you're hoping that the length of it keep going is adding to the humor.
Yeah,
that's part of the joke.
It was not.
It's just painful.
Painful.
Extra beat alert.
Beat the beat, extra beat.
Homer brings his that one was tame.
Beat the beat, the beat, the beat, beat, beat.
It's just the same thing but louder. But Homer.
I'm trying not to wake up.
I know. Good thing our mics have that orange juice powering them up.
That's right.
From
Thanks, Sharon.
Our migrant workers and Sharon down in the basement of We Studios.
My mother has died to power your microphones.
She sure did. Orange Julius.
That was my father, Orange Julius.
Because he picked the oranges.
Yes, and his name was Julius.
App name.
It was.
So
no relation to the drink.
So when Gruffudd killed you, you were already an orphan.
There are many inconsistencies about my life.
For instance, you may or may not be Werner Herzog.
I'm a ghost.
The extra beat alert is Homer goes to Flanders and says, "I'm going to rehab. Can you please watch the kids?" And Flanders goes, "Oh, thank God! I was waiting for you to finally face your demons."
Face your demons. Yep.
And Homer says, "My demons and I have never been closer." I actually like that line.
Oh, I hated it. It was my demons and I are closer than ever. In fact, we're going to go on a tour of the stadiums next year.
That's the extra beat I didn't like.
I didn't like any of it.
If it was just the line. My demons and I are closer than ever. Thank you very much. I kind of like. There's a nice imagery to that. Like just the idea that Homer's like literally okay with his demons.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like the imagery of that. But the baseball save line was just an extra beat and it killed the joke.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, the Marge rehab scenes. So Marge is in rehab. They did nothing. There was not this was a really hollow episode for me. Like I said, I really liked the premise in the first
first
act, the
half.
first non-Star Wars act. I really dug the premise of them together, and even though Homer's act was heinous, it is a certainly radical way to push the story forward. And I don't know, I feel like they didn't do anything with it. It just
not radical like how Millhouse says it, and that kid with the backpack
radical.
says it.
That's our word. No, yeah, it was just. It's for something such a big act and for such a huge betrayal, they really don't do anything with it. Like the scenes with Marge and Rehab, they do nothing. She doesn't have any realization. She doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, she gets drunk with Agnes Skinner and Miss Krabappel, and Miss Krabappel just spells out exactly what Marge feels, and it was awful.
There's a big rule in writing that I don't necessarily agree with, especially in comedy, but there's definitely merit to it, and a lot of writers do stick to it. And that theory is that every single individual scene has to have its arc. It has to start you someplace and end you someplace different.
Yep.
And like the Rehab scenes, I don't know. I feel like there's just nothing there. There's just nothingness.
There was.
Like even her, like the point of her finally getting drunk with them in Rehab, which maybe is offensive. I don't know at this point.
I don't know if it's offensive, but whatever.
Just them getting drunk together, it was just lame. Like, so that's where she finally gets into a realization that.
Yeah. She doesn't even realize anything.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
the way this episode resolves is that Marge just forgives Homer for basically no reason.
So yeah, Homer reveals she doesn't even know that she still thinks she drove the car.
No, not at that point, because Homer said it to her. Then she went back and started getting drunk with Agnes
that's
and Mr.
right.
Bobble.
Okay, yeah.
But what happens is she's like, well, we had so much fun before you blamed me for drunk driving, so let's just go back to that. Completely ignoring the fact that he put himself in front of her and did something horrible.
It's such a serious betrayal that it needed
betrayal. There's the
some
word.
kind of resolution. There's a very
there's none.
similar scene again in a classic season episode from way back when Marge refuses to lie. When Bart gets hit by Mr. Burns' car, all she has to do is lie. They will win. They'll lie on the witness stand, perjure herself, and they will win $1 million. And she doesn't do it, and Homer is betrayed because this woman basically cost him $1 million.
Right,
and
by doing the right thing.
Yeah, by doing the right thing. But to his mind, she betrayed him. And there is a very serious scene where he doesn't know if he can be with her anymore because she betrayed him. She turned, and she stabbed him in the back, so to speak. And they spend a lot of time where she comes to Moe's and she tries to apologize and reconcile with him, and she says, "You look me in the eye and you tell me if you can still love me." And they make a really dramatic thing out of it where he starts at her toes and he's working up the hate inside himself. He's like, I don't want to forgive her. She doesn't deserve my forgiveness, and I'm building up the resolve so that I can look her in the eye and tell her to go fuck off. And then he looks her in the eye and he instantly melts. He's in love with her. That scene is so dramatic ending. Because it was such a big betrayal.
Yep.
This was a much worse betrayal.
Much worse. Because Marge is in the right. Marge didn't do anything. Homer's the one who did something horrible.
And
it comes out of nowhere. And just a forgiveness. Marge has no test for him. There should have been some kind of... Homer doesn't learn anything. Homer doesn't change at all. There's a weak thing at the end, like you said, he gives up clear alcohol, and then he tries to take another drink from the stupid Bible flask.
Usually in a post-classic episode that's really shitty, usually he earns back her trust by some stupid thing that has nothing to do with anything. Like he gets beat up or something, and she goes, "Okay, I forgive you." And we will shit on that because that's not a reason to forgive somebody.
Right.
But at least it's trying.
It's something. This is nothing.
No attempt to ridiculous. He tries to punch the Rehab guy in the face, and the only reason I point that out is because I also like the animation of that. He misses, and his head hits the corner of the desk.
Right.
That was a fun little animation thing that I would throw in there before we continue shitting on the end. It was such a shit ending.
Shit. It was hammering a crap nail into a poop board or whatever we said before.
I don't think it was that.
I don't think it was that either. I got nothing. So.
That Bible runner comes back, and this is how the episode ends.
Right.
He goes, "Only clear liquor," and he takes out a he goes. Except let me turn to the good book, and he goes to get his drink from the Bible, and it turns out now he has a real Bible. It's not hollowed out. There's no drink in it.
Right.
And I like that line. I didn't like the line. I like that moment because of Homer's complete emotionally like distraught at the fact that he has a Bible.
Yeah,
It's one of those like
Like,
great,
the Bible.
yeah, it's just like a great.
Yeah.
The Simpsons does religious jokes great, and it's just such like a disrespectful and a very obvious, but so obvious it's funny way. Where it's just, there's a great line in the Simpsons movie actually is very similar where he goes, "Oh man, this book has no answers," something like that.
Right.
It's just like a very simple joke because the Bible is so well revered, and it's just the Bible. It just that was a funny way. That was funny, but I mean that entire act was just all shit. That was one of the few lights shining there.
Yeah.
Homer, you are so cute.
Oh, honey, I love to hear you laugh.
I don't talk like that.
Yes, you do.
Well, you talk like, oh, Marge, sorry I set the bed on fire. Don't.
So that's it for this episode. I think it's
Yeah.
time to, we're going to rank this episode on our Hippo scale, our 4-factor test. We're looking at the humor, the integrity, the production of the episode, and the originality of the episode. Production and originality are worth less on our scale. So let's put some time on the clock. Jack, you ready to do this? Beep, boop, beep, boop, boop. There's the clock noise that we always use every time. So let's do it. Let's talk about the humor. Codependence Day, what do you think? Scale of 0 to 5.
First half had some winners. We liked
first
the
half had
dog
a lot-
walker,
a lot of
with
laughs
the
that I liked.
newspaper, and there was 3 Harry Shearer lines I really liked.
Right.
Second half was awful.
Second half was pretty awful. So
If I say a 2, it's because the good stuff was so good, but I feel like that even might be too generous.
I think you might be too generous. I'm going to go 1.5.
1.5.
The integrity of the episode. I think this is where the episode is the lowest.
Yeah, Homer's integrity.
Homer is terrible in this episode.
I mean, so you start at 2.5 like we do, and you bring it way down.
And insulting George Lucas, there's no integrity in that.
That's true too. Well, I would put that in
That's more
production
and originality.
So I meant originality. 2.5, I would bring it way down, but I gotta admit that the Marge and Homer doing the impressions, that whole scene was one of my favorite integrity scenes we've covered so far. That'll bring it back up. I'm gonna say a 2.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was thinking 0.5. The fact that I like the beginning of this arc so much is the only thing making me think I might do 1.
Marge drunk was so much fun, and Marge and Homer drunk together was so much fun.
It was a lot of
I
fun.
will let that. I would give it I would say a 0.5.
But Homer-
and then this. All right, so I won't bring it up. 2 points.
This is probably the worst thing Homer's ever done.
Maybe a 1.5.
All right. The production of this episode, I actually think this was a pretty strong produced episode.
We talked a lot
a
about
lot of good
the
animation,
the
a lot of good
design.
sound. Yeah. So I'm thinking it's got to be higher than average. I'm thinking a 3.5.
Yeah, maybe the Star Wars stuff was kind of.
The Star Wars stuff I thought was actually pretty well done.
I'll let you know. I'm wavering between
okay.
3 and 3.5.
All right. And the originality of this episode, well, it was original. It was also
Yeah, like I said, I really like the
Terrible.
idea of a couple bonding with alcohol.
yes.
I don't mind the idea of Homer betraying Marge if he had a good reason, and I don't know.
I mean,
the Phantom Menace stuff was terrible.
right, and 5 years
And we
after
got-
the fact.
5 years after the fact, and this is where we're taking away points for their George Lucas short
I gotta
jokes.
think we're going below average, and I'm thinking a lot below average.
I mean, the general plot I like a lot,
And that's
so
the only thing I'm giving
I
points
would
for.
say 2.5 to 3.5 for that, and then taking away 1.
Yeah, 1 is exactly what I was thinking. We're very close here, Pacone. Okay, so we have crunched our numbers, and we have found that Codependence Day is a worse episode than Large Marge, and a very slightly better episode than Kill the Alligator and Run. That puts it in our bottom 6 episodes,
Yeah.
which I think is
It
appropriate.
belongs there. I'm not sure exactly if I agree with where it is in that bottom 6. It's sometimes it's hard to reconcile the numbers with my gut.
Yeah.
But I think that's the point of the numbers.
Yeah, definitely. You know what's strange is that this episode is now 2 above Father Knows Worst, which was episode 36. I don't remember that episode at all, and it was 2 weeks
That's
ago.
what I was gonna say. Is with this episode, I really thought it was really bad. The second half, like really bad, but
Yeah.
it wasn't offensively bad like almost all of our worst episode title holders have been.
Yeah, I
those
mean-
were ones that like it just riled us up.
The greatest story ever doed is just
Yeah.
that's a terrible
Whereas
episode.
this one, it really is terrible.
There's
but
some stuff to
it's-
like.
And not only that, just even the terrible parts are just kind of blandly terrible. It's because they just didn't try.
Yeah, I agree.
I almost feel more apathetic towards them, and just like they're not gonna give a shit. Why should I give a shit? Whereas the other ones, like Greatest Story Ever Told and Bonfire of the Manatees, it almost seems like they went out of their way to fucking derail the show.
Definitely. Okay, before we go on a beat too long, let's get out of here. Okay, so that is it for this episode of Worst Episode Ever. You can check out our website, weepodcast.com. That's weepodcast.com. And from there you can get show notes, get to our Facebook page, our Twitter. A lot of fun stuff. You can download the episode, all that fun stuff. I said fun stuff so many times. It's fun stuff happening on that website.
Extra beat alert. Extra beat alert.
And of course, you can submit an episode on our handy-dandy form, and you should do that. If you're in the Brooklyn area, you could come to Woohoo Classic Simpsons Trivia. You have not missed it because it's not today. If you're listening to this episode when it comes out, it's actually going to be July 9th this month because of Independence Day here in the States.
And also, if you're following us on Twitter, you can probably follow us on Periscope.
Yes,
at
that's
Worst
right.
Episode Pod. There is a very good chance we will be periscoping trivia for the first round of trivia, first 20 questions.
Yes, so that will be about 8 p.m. Eastern Time on July 9th.
So
Check that out.
you can watch Dan asking questions live and me holding the camera up live.
Yes, we did a test run of that at June's Trivia, and the power went out.
Oh yeah, the power went out.
It was a video of me screaming questions to increasingly irate and angry Simpsons fans.
That's what you missed.
That's what you missed. If you want to follow us personally on Twitter, I'm at ThenDanSays.
I'm at Jackie No Breaks.
And where are we at here? We're coming back next week. We're going to do this again.
Yeah, okay. I thought this was it.
This was not the series finale.
Every week is just going to...
Nope.
And then you re-up us. We re-up our contracts.
I have the control of our contracts here. If I don't say that we're coming back for another one next week, we're not coming back, folks.
Well, you're the lawyer.
That's right.
I don't know what the contract
I
says.
have bound you, sir.
I just
with
assumed...
a verbal agreement.
I really think it would be more efficient if we didn't do a by the week contract.
Nope,
but
we're doing a week to week. That's how we do it here at We Studios, and that's why we have orange juicer laborers.
I demand more money.
No, get out of here. Go to the bus stop.
Okay. That was my Dracula fingers. It's not, in case you couldn't tell.
I couldn't tell. Next week, we'll be back. What episode are we watching called Dracula Fingers? No, don't say it. No one can understand you. We're going to be watching Season 25's Lucas with a $. Lucas. So that'll be interesting. You can watch that on Simpsons World in the meantime. And finally, we have our Cut All This Summer of Fans submission. We're going to listen to one in a moment, but if you would like to submit a Cut All This submission, you can do that on our website. Go to the Summer of Fans page.
We call it a cat.
We call it a cat.
Meow.
Get those cats in. Meow, meow, meow.
The C for cut, the A for all, the T for this.
The T for this.
Our cat submissions.
So, Jack, who is our Cut All This submission today?
All right, today...
Who's a cool cat?
Today, our cool cat is Joanna Martinez from Madison, Indiana.
She'll be doing a Lumberg-themed Cut All This.
Cool cat, you take it away.
Take it away, babe.
Yeah, so if you could just go ahead and cut all this, that'd be great.